Hello and welcome to PT and Nutrition Education's e-learning platform. Today, as you can see, we're going to be focusing on the nutrition program overview for your 8-week predictive plan. So you should be at the stage now where your 8-week predictive plan has been completed, your 2-week diet plan has been planned, and you're now at a stage where you have to provide a rationale and justification for the choices that you've made relating to your client goals. Okay, so as we've already stipulated on the previous slide, when it comes to the program overview, what we're trying to do here is provide a rationale and justification of the program you designed for your client. You're trying to prove to the reader and also the assessor that the 8-week program that you have designed is a highly efficient one and also one that will work based on peer-reviewed research. So if you've put a certain training strategy in place, a certain type of rep or set protocol, then we need to really providing some kind of research which backs your choice for this. Now, the good thing is that there is a plethora of research in things like the Journal of Sports Science and the Journal of Strength and Conditioning related to the goals of your client. I appreciate that the goals of the client may differ widely based on the person that you're working with, but there is going to be lots of evidence related to whatever your client's looking to do. So whether they're looking to reduce body fat or increase muscle mass or even indeed increase strength, there is a lot of research out there that you can find and you can implement in your program overview in order to provide a ample rationale and justification. What we recommend for the program overview is that you do this in an assignment format, so that you're writing this as if you were writing an assignment like you would do at college or university, so that it is of a level 3 standard, and again, providing those references where we can refer to literature within the world of sports science, personal training, strength conditioning, which will relate to your 8-week program overview.
Okay, so just to give you some direction relating to your nutrition program overview, there are three main areas of concern which you need to make sure that you include in order to achieve all of the criteria relating to the PPO. So if we look here, we've got number one, we've already mentioned this now, and relating to how the program is linked to the client goals. So within your learner achievement portfolio, you should have identified what the key goals are for your client, and therefore how did you meet those goals relating to nutritional advice, information, and intervention that you went through with your client. Number two, you must justify the choices made and explain how the program would help them achieve their goals. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the next slide relating to these particular points, but this is where the literature really does come into its own to back up some of the choices that you've made relating to the intervention and the client goals, which you should have previously mentioned on the previous point.
And lastly, point three of the areas for concern and to ensure that you include it in your PPO is how did you ensure that the nutrition plan integrated with the physical activity program? So, like we mentioned in the 2-week diet plan overview video, there has to be a physical activity program which is worked alongside your nutritional plan. Otherwise, how can we provide justifications relating to certain types of macronutrient prescriptions, timings, recovery protocols? We need to ensure that the rationale that you're giving is relating to a physical activity program that you will provide as additional supplementary evidence when you submit your learner achievement portfolio. So those are the three main areas which you need to make sure that you cover in your nutrition program overview. What we're going to do on the next slide is we're going to go into a bit more detail about some of the questions that you might ask yourself in order to adequately back up your claims, interventions, and strategies put forward. Okay, so when it comes to probably the most important part of your nutrition program overview, we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the assignment now, and we need to make sure that we're asking certain questions of our nutrition plan that we've put forward in order to meet this expected criteria with the backing up of literature and scientific research. So, by all means, these are not exhaustive, and if you want to explore further topics within the world of nutrition, that's absolutely fine, and you can do that. But there are four main topics here with some questions that you might want to ask yourself that you may find useful in terms of providing a rationale and reasoning behind some of the choices that you've made. So you can see from the slide here, we've got four main topics and areas for concern. We've got the macro and micronutrients. We've got exercise and physical activity. As we are aware, we have to provide a 2-week physical activity program that complements your nutrition plan. Nutrient timing, so the time in which ingestion takes place for both macronutrient and also hydration related ingestion. And then we've also got the energy, so energy balance. What type of energy balance were you in? So if we just approach each one by one, and once again, some of these questions which I'm giving, they are simply just to give you some ideas and are certainly not exhaustive. So when it comes to the macro and micronutrients within your 2-week nutrition plan, we have to at least justify the macronutrient prescriptions that you're giving. So here, how many carbohydrates, how many grams of protein, how many grams of fat are you putting in your daily nutrition plan? It could be meal by meal, it could be overall on a weekly basis, it could be relating to the overall program on a whole. So again, the permutations here are endless, but if we're talking about macronutrient prescriptions, we want to be talking about grams per kilo. So how many grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight are you giving and prescribing to your client, and why? Okay, so there is plenty of research that you can acquire for yourself, and there's also plenty of information which I've already provided in the 2-week diet plan overview, which you can maybe use relating to that. So why are we talking about macronutrient prescriptions? Because the grams per kilogram of macronutrient that you prescribe can have a huge impact on some of the goals which you're trying to achieve. And again, for further information on this, you can look at some peer-reviewed research, and you can also look at the 2-week diet plan video which I gave. In addition to that, we've got timings, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that in some of the extra points. We've got other things there about how we will use these prescriptions to contribute to your client goals. Again, if we go to grams per kilo, how many grams per kilo of body weight are we giving to the client in relation to protein? For example, are they trying to increase muscle mass? Are they trying to maintain muscle mass? And therefore, that's going to have huge implications on the grams per kilo, the nutrient prescription that you give relating to protein based on the goal that you've got. And then lastly, this will contribute to macro and micronutrient overview. So supplements. Which supplements were you using and why? So if it was relating again to protein, were you using a whey protein supplement? And if so, why that particular type of protein were you giving to your client? And again, there's plenty of information about how whey protein is probably the most efficacious when it comes to increasing muscle mass due to its leucine content. So again, that's something that you can further explore, and also there's more information on that in relating to the 2-week diet plan overview video. Was it relating to supplements such as a multivitamin? Because they might have been lacking in a certain area, and therefore you needed to provide more of a certain nutrient in order to cover their overall health in relation to goals you might have had relating to that. So again, the permutations are endless. These are just certain questions that you may ask yourself relating to macro and micronutrient prescriptions. Okay, if we look at point 2, we've got the exercise and physical activity program. So here we've got something called peri-nutrition, where we look at nutrition prior, intra, or even post exercise or physical activity, and therefore why were you giving that kind of nutrition before or after. So once again, there is some really groundbreaking research in the world of sports nutrition relating to peri-workout nutrition, about things that you can do, strategies that you can use about omitting certain macronutrients, such as omitting carbohydrate before endurance activity can increase endurance capacity and also enhance potentially a fat burning effect. There is plenty of research relating to that. There is also plenty of research relating to post-workout protein ingestion by the way of whey protein, and how that might be more superior than other types of protein after a workout has taken place. Again, these are all areas which you can explore for yourself, and you can discover some of the research, and therefore you can implement that as part of your nutrition intervention with your client, and therefore write about that in your nutrition program overview. So once again, we're just taking some of that sport related, nutrition related research, and then we're putting that into our plan, and this is the reason why you did what you did. For point number 3, we've got nutrient timing. So why did you plan certain nutrient ingestion at certain times? So if we just go away from the physical activity program, because we've already related to some of those points, and explore maybe other areas you might not have thought of, it might be that you've planned high glycemic carbohydrates a couple of hours before bedtime, and the rationale behind this might be relating to blood sugar, because blood sugar will rise when we've had high glycemic carbohydrates, but it will plummet after postprandial digestion. So what we've got here is an effect where we can actually increase or elicit tiredness, and therefore enhance sleep quality by ingesting high glycemic carbohydrates prior to bed. We've probably all felt that feeling before, where we've had some high glycemic carbohydrate, maybe around Christmas time, in the middle of the day, and then we get that slump at 3-4 o'clock where we feel like we want a nap. And again, it's relating to the timing of the nutrients at certain times to elicit a certain response. In addition to that, high glycemic carbohydrates at night might play a role in recovery and glycogen replenishment after a heavy training session. So there is more than one reasoning behind putting high glycemic carbohydrates at night, for example, if that relates to your client goals. So again, it's just thinking outside of the box, looking at some of these factors and seeing how you can incorporate that into your rationale and your program overview. Okay, and lastly, point number 4, which is no doubt going to be one of the most popular areas where our students are going to look into regarding energy balance. So we've got here whether or not your client was in a positive, negative, or neutral energy balance. You've spent a whole lesson on this, talking about energy balance for units 1 and 4 for your exams. So we can again relate to what type of energy balance your client was in, and why you were looking to put them in that particular energy balance in order to achieve the goal that you were trying to achieve. So more often than not, we're either trying to gain some muscle or we're trying to lose some fat, and therefore it might be that you want to put them into a negative energy balance. You put protein prescriptions high, but you're in an overall negative energy balance, and therefore you're maintaining mass while trying to focus on fat loss. So being in a negative energy balance will mean that you will lose weight. Which type of weight you lose will be determined by your macronutrient prescriptions. But of course, here what we're trying to do is talk about energy balances and why you've put them in a certain energy balance in order to achieve a certain goal. Of course, that can be also related to maintaining weight, but also trying to manipulate body composition. Of course, these are two very different things. Body composition is relating to the ratio between your lean body mass and your fat mass, whereas your body weight is, of course, a number on a scale. And you might be trying to manipulate the composition as opposed to the weight in order to achieve a certain goal, whether that be increased health parameters or increased muscle mass or decreased body fat levels. And then the second question, and something again that you might want to include or think about when it comes to your intervention, is did you undulate the energy balance on certain days, or did you maintain consistency throughout your plan? So here what we're relating to when we say undulate is that when we're trying to put our client into a negative energy balance, it's important to remember that that hasn't got to be on a daily basis. There might be a few days during the week where your client will train excessively hard. They're doing some cardio work in the morning, they're doing some strength work in the evening, and therefore you might require a bit more energy on those particular days, and therefore more calories. But on other days where they're resting or they're maybe doing stuff by the desk all day and they're not really burning much energy, it might be that you can get away with lowered energy balance prescriptions. So, we don't have to have a maintenance calories every single day. We can have fluctuations in the amount of calories that you're ingesting, as long as over the course of a week or even a month, you're in the energy balance that you desire, whether that be negative, neutral, or positive. Okay, so those are just 4 key areas which you may wish to explore further into relating to your nutrition program overview. As we explained at the beginning of the slide, this is certainly not an exhaustive list, and you're certainly not restricted to these 4 areas, albeit, these 4 areas do cover a lot of the client goals that you might be putting forward. So it is important that we do try to include some of them, but again, it is not exhaustive and you can explore into further realms if you so wish. Just at the bottom of the screen there, you can see with an asterisk that it has to be provided with context about your client. So we need to make sure that everything that you're saying is related to your client. Again, in your learner achievement portfolio, you've done a client interview. You find out as much about your client as you possibly can before you put an intervention forward. So every point that you're putting forward, every rationale that you're explaining, and every literature point that you're putting in your work has to relate to the context of your client and the goals, their lifestyle, and so on. You'll know your client better than the assessor, and therefore it's up to you to explain those particular points when it comes to writing about your nutrition program overview rationale. Okay? So good luck. That's hopefully enough information there and guidance relating to your nutrition program overview, and then we'll see you over on the next video.